Welcome, Midgardians, to That Midgard Show. I'm Clay. Joe will be back in future episodes. He's been traveling for his job and releasing a lot of great content on the GM Toolbox. And if you're not subscribed to that channel, we have a link above that'll take you there. A link to GM Toolbox is also available in the description. In this episode, we finally return to our Empire of the Ghouls series and discuss the lore and locations found in the Catacombs of the Ghul King adventure. Specifically, we're heading to Siwal and the Grand Necropolis, located in the Southlands desert on the Southlands continent. In an upcoming episode, we wrap up this chapter with a discussion about the Gravebinders, a unique wizard subclass unique to D&D, and a cult known as Selket Sting, which operates in Siwal. So let's get into it. Siwal is a new location our heroes will visit in the Empire of the Ghouls campaign. And we're going to have a little bit of spoilers for the next few minutes. So if you don't want to be spoiled, skip ahead a little bit. Upon arrival, our heroes must find the home of Gravebinder wizards while contending with pickpockets, merchants hawking their wares, and the general hustle and bustle of a trade city on the edge of the desert. After speaking to the Gravebinders of Siwal, the characters are sent on a mission to discover that the self-styled Ghul King has awoken in the city's catacombs. He has grown his power base by influencing the restless dead to attack mourners and funeral goers during the day, which breaks the laws of the necropolis. Now, this adventure is kind of the price the PCs have to pay to acquire an important artifact from the Gravebinders. And if the PCs agree to deal with the Ghul King, the Gravebinders will provide our heroes with an important artifact that'll help them travel among the ghouls of the Imperium without being detected. And that's really important because it's crazy. It's simply crazy for the living to head down to the Underdark, because down there, you're food. You're nothing else, just food. So if you're lucky, you'll be turned into a ghoul while you're down there. And at worst, you're going to be on the dinner table. So our heroes really need to get this artifact from the Gravebinders. Now, Siwal is described as a wonder in the Southlands campaign setting book. It is a sovereign city-state. It is located in the Sarkland Desert in the Southlands on the Mahomet Road between Nurya Natal and Mahomet. Now, this Mahomet Road is a major trade route, and valuable merchandise passes along it daily. And merchants and caravans making the trip must have enough armed support to run the gauntlet of raiders and bandits. Siwal has a population of around 11,000, and humans make up most of that population, with gnolls, dwarves, Haruti, which are bird folk, and other lineages making up the balance. Siwal is ruled by the Sultan al-Mamun, who is a thief lord, and his vizier Akil bin Khaldun. Now, Siwal is a beautiful city of basalt minarets, granite fountains, and marble monuments. Elemental water magic keeps many of the parks and rooftop gardens lush year-round. Small markets called souks occupy courtyards and other open areas, where merchant carts and stands offer goods of all kinds. So this is a good opportunity for your party to resupply if they need anything. Now, these markets draw many beggars, though the threat of corporal punishment for caught criminals keeps the incidence of theft reasonably low. And the trope I kind of like to use in this situation is thieves' hands are cut off and hung on a pole or a rope in the main markets. But one time in a past adventure, those hands animated into crawling claws and gave my party a really hard time. So, consider that. So because of Siwal's proximity to a major trade road, great wealth flows through that city, and the priority is trade. Nothing should interfere with that trade. Now, a lot of the products that come through Siwal is things like barley, dates, herbs, millet, which is a grain, opals, which is a gem, rare flowers, salt, sandship transport, and mummy dust, which is an illegal drug. Now, as I mentioned earlier, so long as profits continue to roll in, the city's ruler, the Sultan, and his vizier are inclined to ignore trouble on other fronts, trusting that any distress or deviation will right itself eventually. Now, I said earlier that we're going to talk about Selket Sting in our next episode, but I'm just going to touch upon them slightly in this episode. So where there is freewheeling commerce happen in a city, there's usually some nefarious groups that want to profit on trade. This is where the cult of Selket Sting comes in, and they primarily run a protection racket and skim profits from caravans and sandships. So this operation in Siwal is led by Siddiqui Sifu, who has organized a group of more than 30 human and dwarf priest bandits called the Desert Scorpions. Their efforts finance the work of Selkit Sting through Nuria and the deserts, and their carefully brewed poisons are shipped to assassins throughout Nuria Natal under careful eyes. Now, they consider themselves the secret rulers of the city trade, and perhaps they are, but we'll get more into that in our next episode. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of a taste. The other taste I wanted to get into just a little bit is the Gravebinders, and they are the priests of Anu Akma who hold sway over Siwal's Grand Necropolis. And they would argue that it is the Purifier of Souls, who is Anu Akma themselves, who actually rules everything. The cult of Anu Akma holds immense influence in the city, and it's rare for something that they advocate not come to pass. So a very, very powerful organization in Siwal. And again, we'll get more into that in our next episodes. They're really cool, I assure you. Now, other than the Grand Necropolis, which we'll discuss shortly, the other notable area of Siwal is the Library Temple of Thoth. Now, this complex is located in the city center, and it retains copies of works entirely unknown elsewhere. While merchants thrive in Siwal, the scholars and keepers of lore likewise learn a great deal from the steady stream of sand ships and caravans from distant lands. An adept of the scribes of Thoth questions visitors at the sand ship wharfs. Often, this is Sahat Kathoth herself, the leader of the scribe priests, dressed in her leopard skin robes and wearing a crescent headband marked with an ibis and stars. Now, ibis is a bird, if you don't know that already. Now, I love libraries, and this sounds like a great location for an adventure. And you can decide for yourself how big the library is. It could be this grand structure that goes deep underground and spread across Siwal, housing countless tomes for your adventures to get into. So if there's additional information that your heroes need, use that location as a place for them to visit. Now let's get into the Grand Necropolis. Now this is really the coolest part of Siwal. The Grand Necropolis is actually a separate city, right next door, about the same size of Siwal itself. And it's just a few minutes of travel north of the city of Siwal. And the Grand Necropolis attracts many visitors who pay for the privilege of viewing the tombs of the heroes interred there. It is the most famous graveyard in Nuria Natal and houses the remains of 10,000 dead heroes, or more or less. It's up to you. The necropolis is also the resting place of ordinary folk from every walk of life, from babes who drew only a few breaths, to wizened wizards who outlived their children and grandchildren, and acclaimed generals, great heroes of Nuria Natal. The laws of the Grand Necropolis is simple. Under the sun, the living reign, and make what arrangements they will. After night falls, the spirits, ghouls, and vampires hold their court, and any living that stays behind or enters becomes prey. At night, the Grand Necropolis becomes a true city of the dead. Ghouls crawl from their burrows, vampires emerge from their crypts, and mummies shuffle from their tombs to see to their interests and take part in a weird mockery of the living civilization. The lords of the dead in the Grand Necropolis levy fines and enact harsher punishment on those who break their laws. Now, as I mentioned earlier, in the depths of one of the necropolis crypts, a ghoul has elevated himself to the rank of a god and into a more powerful form. And this self-named Ghul King has upset the power balance in the necropolis and flouts its laws by allowing its agents to act at any hour they wish. And we'll discuss the Ghul King more in an upcoming creature showcase. It is a very cool creature to fight. Now, the master gravebinder of the Grand Necropolis is a character named Hashal al-Mariji, and his family are the gravebinders of Siwal. They view the preparation of the body for the afterlife a sacred calling, and the gravebinders oversee all aspects of it, making shrouds, embalming and grooming corpses, performing mourning ceremonies, and consecrating graves. Now, the purpose of all this is twofold. First, the gravebinders ensure that all steps are taken to ensure the dead's acceptance into the afterlife. And second, the most important, is their preparations prevent a rise of new undead in the necropolis. Now, funerals are held in the necropolis daily, and the walls occasionally need to be expanded. The Grand Necropolis during the day also has kind of a police force, and there are Gnoll warriors who patrol the streets and avenues by day destroying any undead impertinent enough to be active during that time. So the Grand Necropolis is probably one of the most interesting areas of the Southlands, in my opinion. Again, not a lot written by it, so there's a great opportunity for you to kind of add your own creativity to the Grand Necropolis. All right, so that's our show, and thank you for joining us today. Our next episode will be a creature showcase, followed by our final Catacombs of the Ghul King episode, where we discuss the Gravebinders and a cult called Selket's Sting. We love hearing from our listeners and value your feedback and comments on the content we discuss. We read and respond to every comment, so don't hesitate to share your thoughts with us and your fellow listeners. And please smash that like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. On the social media, the best place to reach us is on the koboldpress official Discord server. There you can send us a direct message or tag us in your posts to join the conversation. The pod is also available on your favorite podcasting platform, and we'd appreciate if you could leave a rating and a review. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners who share our love for the Midgard campaign setting. So stay safe out there, and as Wolfgang Bauer says, strip it for parts and make it your own. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. Take care, everyone.